not to be childish, but childlike. Every day I prayed that prayer for 15 years. And I know one day I woke up and I said to my wife, I said, you know, I feel different. Now, I've never drank coffee in my life, and I never drank a bottle of beer or a glass of beer or nothing. But that doesn't mean anything. But children don't drink beer and drink coffee, and I never did anyway. And so I told my wife, I said, I feel different. I feel like God answered my prayer. And He did. So that's a prayer everyone should pray. Pray to Mother Mary to ask her son to give you the heart you had when you were 5. Because children believe in God. Adults say to God, show me and I'll believe you. God says, believe me and I'll show you. So have the heart of a child and you'll enter that host. I just can't wait to go to adoration again and have it happen again and again. So it's wonderful. Now the people that didn't hear my testimony the first time, I'll just take 5 or 10 minutes and tell you that I was an automobile dealer. I was very successful. I retired when I was 47. And we built a big house in New Hampshire, and the children come up, and the grandchildren come up at Christmas. And one day, we sold that house. And I think we sold it to the devil. Excuse me, Lord, but it was so evil. But anyway, we moved in on Halloween night. That should have tipped me off right there. It was no good. But anyway, we moved to Tallahassee. We bought a big ranch. And one day, we had gates in front of the house, and they had a buzzer that could ring the house, and you could talk to the person at the gate. And so I let the guy in and asked him who it was. And so he opened the front door, and he flipped his badge, and it was the FBI. And he had a subpoena for me and my wife, and for the records of the sale of our house. And I'll just do this quickly, because my wife doesn't like this part of the story. But not all FBI agents are like this, but this guy he was a cowboy. He looked at my wife and he said, what are we going to do when we get her in prison? And so I suffered a heart attack. It was terrible. We thought of suicide. It was so bad. And so when all this was going on, we hired a lawyer, a local lawyer in Tallahassee. He was as bad as the FBI agent. And so finally our son-in-law works at the Mercantile Exchange. He said, Dad, why don't you come up here to Chicago and hire a lawyer in Chicago? So we went into Chicago. We leased our house out to a guy, and we moved in with our daughter. We're probably the only parents that move back in with their children. Usually the children move with their parents. And so we went up there, and we were really distraught. And so we went to see the lawyer. And he looked at us, and he said, they want to indict you and your wife for selling your house? He said, there must be more to this than that. I said, that's it. I said, it's all crazy. And so my sister, she called me and said, Ferdinand, what's going on? I said, a lot of things going on. She said, why don't you go to Medjugorje? Now this is 1992. There's a war going on, and the federal government said it's not a safe place to go. Well, when I heard that, I said, I want to go. Because the FBI will never come to Medjugorje to get us because it's dangerous. So my sister said, there's only 50 people going. I'll see if there's a room for 2 people. Well, the next day there was a cancellation of 2 people. And so Barbara and I sent the money. And we met these people in New York. We didn't know the Chapel of the Divine Mercy. We knew the Rosary, but not the chapel. And so at 3 o'clock in Kennedy Airport, these 50 people kneel down. There's 2 priests, and they start praying the Chapel of the Divine Mercy. And so we kneel down, but I didn't know it, so I hummed it something. And finally we get on a plane. And now we're not coming back to the United States. Oh, by the way, the lawyer, Jeffrey Steinbeck, he said to me, I can't let you leave the country. He said, I said, well, what can I come back in 10 days? He said, do you promise? Remember when you were a kid and you crossed your fingers and didn't count? I was like this. Yeah, we were coming back. But we weren't coming back. He said, okay, I'll cover for you. We went to Medjugorje and we weren't coming back. When we got to Medjugorje, I'm looking for a cab driver because I want to buy a house because we're going to live there. And so these 50 people, 2 priests and 48 people, they're all praying, going to mass, and I'm trying to find a cab driver because cabbies know everything. Finally, there's a cab in front of the St. James Church. It's an orange Mercedes, and it's got no broken windows and no dents. All the other cars got broken windows and dents, but this car's shiny. And so I go up to the guy and I said, is this a taxi? And he said, yes. And I said, can I hire it? For the day I want to buy a house. So Barbara got in the back and I got in the front, and he's driving us around Medjugorje. Now God has a sense of humor. Every house he showed us, the roof was blown off, the house was blown off, it was destroyed. I said, look, we want to buy a house we can live in. He said, you don't understand. The people that have houses that aren't blown up are living in them. So anyway, I don't know if I got time to tell you, we went to Mostar. My wife wanted to go to Mostar. So the cab driver, I can't prove that he was an angel, but I believe he was. I said, we'd like to go to Mostar. Now, we don't know there's a war going on in Mostar. My wife heard about Mostar. I don't know where she heard about it. We get to this road, and they've got sandbags and machine guns. And I spent 3 years in the Marine Corps. This looks like trouble. And so the guy comes up, the soldier comes up and says to the cab driver, you know, he's talking Croatian, and they move the gate, and we're driving into Mostar. Now, coming out of Mostar is a car, broken windows, with soldiers sitting on the windows, firing their rifles that way. We're going that way, and they're coming this way. We got no weapons. And so the cab driver, he's still okay. And he said, you see those shallow graves that were just killed probably yesterday? And we get into Mostar, and the bridge is blown up, and there's fires, and there's people with rifles sticking out of the windows. And my wife gets out of the cab and says to this nice guy, who takes some pictures. So the guy takes our picture, and finally the cab driver loses it. He said, we gotta get out of here. So we get back in the car, and we drive out, and we get back into Medjugorje, and we go to Gloria's Pizzeria. We're going to eat pizza every day because we got no place to live. We're not going back with the pilgrims. And so we go to Gloria's Pizzeria, and this priest, Father Tom, he doesn't like me. I don't know why, but he just doesn't like me. And so they come in and they say, you missed a great day to see Father Yozo. So the cab drivers leaned over. He said, I'll take it tomorrow for a private meeting for Father Yozo. And I said, Father, we're going to go have a private meeting tomorrow. And the priest got real mad. He said, who do you think you are? You car dealers are all alike. And so this other priest, what was his name? Father Joyce says, Ferdinand, could I go with you? He said, I was sick and we couldn't go to see Father Yozo. So I asked the cab driver, and he said, sure. So I said, yeah. He said, can my cousin come too? So I said, yeah, he can come too. So the next day we meet in front of the St. James after Mass, and we get in the car, in this Mercedes, and I get in the front, and Father gets in the back with his cousin and my wife, and we go to Tina Lina, and we pull up in front of the statue of St. Francis, and there's no one around. And he gets out of the car. His name is Joe. He said, I'll be right back.